All right. Well, good morning, everybody, or afternoon, wherever you are and listening today. I'm your host, Alexander Toth, and welcome to the TeeBox Chatter Golf Podcast. This morning, after some technical difficulties on my end, not being able to find the record button of all things, I'm joined by a wonderful guest. This guest has some terrific news about some news that they received about a couple weeks ago. He is the general manager of the club at Carlton Woods. I'm joined by Steve Salzman. Steve, thank you so much for joining me on TeeBox Chatter this morning and doing this, of course, this morning.
It's my great pleasure to be with you, Alexander. Thank you for the invite.
So, we'll get right to the news. It was pretty big. The LPGA, they of course left their tournament at Mission Hills or Mission Resort, or I forgot the name of it already. Oh my god! So apparently that's in the review mirror. But they announced recently that they have a new venue for the first major of the year, which is the Chevron Championship, and it's of course golf's first major of the year in general. And they announced the venue being your club, the club at Carlton Woods.
So, yeah, and actually, the tournament obviously has gone through several name changes through the years. The Dinah Shore is probably the most popular, but obviously most recently it was the ANA Inspiration. And then obviously with COVID and what happened with the airline industry, Chevron was nice enough to step in and basically take over as the Chevron Championship, previously held at Mission Hills Country Club for 51 years. So a long-standing track record for them and a long-standing relationship with the LPGA, and one we're honored to kind of take the torch and now hopefully take it into its next, at least 5 years, and maybe beyond that.
Yeah, well, of course, and first of all, I want to thank you for bailing me out there a little bit. I had just that total brain freeze on Mission Hill, so thank you for for helping me out there. Appreciate it.
Well, I can certainly understand, as you might assume, for the last 10 months or so, I've pretty much been living, breathing, and eating this entire conversation. So I am very familiar with all of the language right now.
I love it. So, Carlton Woods, you're in the Houston area. This has to be big for people, not only from Chevron Corporation, but just the Houston area itself.
Well, obviously, major championship, anything is significant for an area. And, Carlton Woods sits in a really lovely north part of Houston called the Woodlands. It's about 35 miles north of the Woodlands, closer to Dallas, closer to the Dallas side of Texas. And, it's neighboring areas more than anything. We have a large number of people in the Woodlands that commute into Houston for work and vice versa. And the Woodlands is such a golf-centric community. I think the Woodlands is something near about 60,000 residents now, and a large percentage of that population does play golf. So this news was kind of percolating for a number of months, and speculation as the location, at least moving to the Houston area, was announced. And then there was speculation, obviously, that we were one of the front runners to host this event. And then, through news articles and things, there was a lot of buzz in the area. Can't say enough about the participation from the township itself. And the Woodlands Township has a tourism component and an entertainment component called Visit the Woodlands. And between the township and Visit the Woodlands, their willingness and assistance through this process, because you've got to have a great club to host a tournament like this.
Of course.
But, you think about parking, shuttling, law enforcement needs, medical assistance, hotels, the housing needs for thousands of spectators, hundreds of participants and caddies, thousands of sponsors. It starts with a great venue, but it very quickly expands out. And I won't use specific names because I haven't asked him if that would be okay, but I will say the organizations that visit the Woodlands and the Township of the Woodlands have been instrumental and are very excited about the tournament as well.
And that's, I think, you strike a good point here. That's a part of tournament golf that, what many people don't realize that organizers or tournament committees have to go through. They have to worry about all the logistics side of things. It's not just about, a venue and providing a good venue for the players or the accommodations strictly for the players. You have an influx of people coming into the area, so I mean that's a very valid point.
Yeah, they expect to say expect is a hard word because it's obviously never been held in the Woodlands before. It's never been held in the Houston area before. Their last year in California, they had 55,000 spectators over the week, which basically starts Monday through tournament Sunday.
Right.
Obviously, coming to a major market, the expectation is those numbers will be higher. But that a lot of the challenges around putting this deal together was timing. And when I say timing, it is very difficult to work out logistics of an event this large because big events kind of create their own space in a calendar. And this event typically was held in, late March or the first week of April. Now it's moving towards the tail end of April. So all of the things with TV that had to be worked out. I mean, to shoehorn it in there because the week after this event is the Kentucky Derby, right? And all the TV contracts with Formula One racing and all the different things that have these TV contracts, and then trying to find a space to move a big event that works for everybody's schedule is hugely challenging. And I think that's why it took so long to really figure out and finalize, the host location. I'm sure they would have rather made an announcement, months ago, perhaps even like in March around the actual event at Mission Hills to announce the new date, the new location. But it takes, NBC's schedule, it takes the PGA Tour schedule, PGA Tour Champions schedule, LPGA schedule. And then as it would just so happen, the very first dates that were set aside for this event, which actually kind of put everything into a pause mode, was that the dates TV had available was simultaneous to the Insperity Invitational, which just so happens to be a very significant Champions Tour event, also held at a different facility in the Woodlands. So, we were excited about the conversation. We were kind of coming to the end of the conversation. And then when we saw the dates, we were just kind of like, really? So then had to go through some significant conversations with PGA Tour Champions, LPGA, also NBC, with the TV component being probably the most important in that, going, we really need to find a new window that works for all of these schedules. And unfortunately, the good people in NBC really kind of worked on the schedule and came up with a great alternative that now works for everybody.
And it's sort of kind of funny that the timing just happened to work out that way. I mean, it was almost like it was meant to be.
I think there's so many irons in the fire at any one time. You obviously have the LPGA Tour. You've got the tournament coordinator and the operating team that puts it on, which is IMG. And then on top of that, you've got Chevron, and then you've got the club. And we started conversations, I think, dating back probably to August of 21. And every conversation just felt better and better. It started out with the club and IMG, then it progressed to IMG, a representative from the LPGA, the club, and a representative from Chevron. But at the time, we didn't know it was Chevron. So this was first name basis stuff. It hadn't been announced yet who the new sponsor was. So for lack of a better term, I'll just use the guy's name and say John. But it was hello, this person from the LPGA, the people from IMG who I knew, and John's from the future sponsor. So so that was kind of funny. And then progressed through the months, progressed through the visits, everything started sounding really good, and everybody was, everybody was singing from the same sheet of music. And when I say that, I mean culturally, what they were trying to accomplish with, empowerment of females, not even equality, but some of that was obviously, equality of golf, empowerment of females in business, STEM and education of juniors, the promotion of girls junior golf. And this is a path that we started down about 7 years ago as a club, when the members bought the club from the developer. And our first move into this was, the old way clubs used to identify TeeBox. We have the advanced tees and the men's tees and the senior tees and the women's tees.
Right. And now women's tees is absolutely, that's
right.
You don't even see it anymore. I mean, it's
however people do it. And I think people have even gotten away from colors so much, because red was always identified as the forward tees, the female tees, the women's
correct
tees. Well, we had a very progressive golf committee at the club back in 2016 that was like, let's take the names off of this. And we went to a Roman numeral tee system, which a lot of clubs have done now. And we have a lot of tees here, so we always have 5 sets. And then because we are a Jack Nicklaus signature course, the farthest set is the Nicklaus tee. So that one still remains named. So we went to a numerical system. And then about, I guess 4 years ago at the board level, looking at growth of golf and, where the sectors were. And obviously female golf was one of the fastest growing segments. Junior golf was really amping up, but the involvement of girls in junior golf, but also females being exposed to the game for the first time, was the largest sector. And we looked around the landscape here in the area, in the Woodlands, in Houston and the region, and really saw this was an underserved segment. So we started working with Nicklaus Design, Chris Cochran, the designer, mainly. And so we'd really like to design a shorter course, something more friendly. And I ended up having conversation with a few different people that had published articles like on what makes a golf course female friendly. And you got to understand that the average female, this is the average female, drives the ball 140 to 150 yards. That's all in. That's carry and roll.
Yes.
And their average 8-iron is about 80 yards. So now you're at a 230-yard par 4. Well, find me courses throughout the country that have 230-yard par 4s, even from their former forward tees. So we set out on a mission to design a challenging, entertaining design at about 3,600 yards.
3,600 yards.
Previously, our shortest distance was 5,300 yards. So we got together, we did this, but we didn't do it in a cosmetic fashion either. We designed the course, we marked the tee boxes, we built full scale tee boxes. We didn't just go put yardage markers in fairways or mow out a little flat area in the rough.
Right.
We built 18 tee boxes, irrigated them properly, drained them properly. All in cost about $75,000 or $80,000. And then we had this 3,600 yard course, but then with mixing the tees and the former forward tees, we ended up with like a 36, a 4,300, 5,300. Then you started going to 57, 63, 7, 72, and we top out at about 74.20. But the other thing is, like any good initiative, it turns into good culture, because we did it for one reason, to really be able to serve this affluent female golfer who could again enjoy the game. But it ended up being great for our junior golf. And as men aged out, they were able to move forward. As soon as we went to numbers, we had a number of our older guys go from the senior tees, which would be our 4 tees, or our 3 tees, to our 4 tees. And then when we built the 5 tees, they went to the 5 tees. And you hear laughter on the golf course again, and you have people having fun and making birdies, and and not only for the reason that they couldn't hit the ball as far anymore. So it's just been awesome. And those initiatives lined up with now what Chevron is doing, equality in the game of golf, what they've done for purses. And you look at what it's done now with KPMG kind of starting the effort, Chevron moving into the effort. And then all of a sudden, the women's US Open increased their purse with guarantee, 10 million to 11 million and then 12 million. What the women's British has done, up to 6 million. The CME tour ending now up to, I think, 7 or 8 million. So this is an awesome moment for female golf. And once we knew what everybody was trying to do, it was a natural fit for us. And we were instantly interested, and we're really excited to get involved at this moment in female golf.
And I mean, you bring up a good point. Like, personally speaking, I'm a huge advocate and supporter of the LPGA. I've long said that they don't get the credit or respect that they deserve, from the average, dare I say it, male golfer. And the reality is, even though their games can't reflect that of the LPGA, the reality is, the distance of, say, a 25 handicapper relates more to an LPGA player versus the guy who just finished playing golf at Brookline this past weekend. Not to make it date sensitive, that this recording, but I mean, what you've done there, I mean, that just has to create just such a fun culture. I mean, and you nailed it too, because I've said for a long time that, grow golf. I mean, that's been a thing that we've heard on social media and everywhere for the last, I don't know how many years. But I've always said that to grow golf is through not just junior golf, but in particular, it's the junior females and female golfers in general. And I mean, it sounds like the club at Carlton Woods has really gone out to, really draw that kind of a golfer in.
Yeah, and your comment about the LPGA, their game is much more relatable to the majority of golfers, because as a golf fan, I think the last couple of weeks we've been treated to probably some of the best competitive golf on the PGA Tour I can remember. Think about the RBC Canadian Open.
Oh, that was amazing.
Those three guys on the back nine was 2 hours of highlight reels. Unbelievable.
Absolutely.
Right. And then, fast forward a week and you get to the men's US Open. And I mean, I don't know that you could have scripted up a much more exciting conclusion. Scheffler in the mix. I mean, right up until the end, he makes that birdie on 15 and you kind of start going, oh boy. And Will Zalatoris. I mean, the guy is unreal, isn't he? I mean, I think he played in like a handful of majors, and he's come in second on 3 of them or something. I mean, and Fitzpatrick, unreal, right? I mean, but I can't relate to a 353-yard drive.
No, precisely.
And I can't relate to a 137-yard sand wedge. That's almost an 8-iron for me, right? And the average drive on the LPGA is 250 yards. I can relate to that number.
Absolutely.
And I start watching them hit approach shots from 150 or 140 or 50 yards, and they're hitting an 8-iron. I can relate to that shot. The other thing that I can also is then you sit there and look how good they are.
Oh, especially their short game. I mean, you know what? That's one thing that, say, a 25 handicap can't relate to with their game,
right?
Because their short games are just so good.
Yeah, I mean, if you really focus on the female game and you look at what Jennifer Kupcho did at the Chevron Championship this last year at Mission Hills, and I mean, you look at the Women's Open at Pine Needles. The other thing that's really coming on now that probably the average golf fan doesn't realize is the LPGA and female golf in general has been really underserved from a television perspective.
Grossly so, I would say.
And, you know, a lot of times it's re-air at 8 or 9 o'clock at night, or it's on streaming and never gets major network coverage. Might be on ESPN Plus, might be on Golf Channel, might get a little bit of coverage here and there, but it's always after hours recorded. And to Chevron's credit, when they were stepping into this, they said, we will do, their contract was basically an 11-year contract with the LPGA. And they stepped in mightily. They said the purse is going to go up and this event will get major network coverage. And not only will it get major network coverage, it will get equivalent coverage to what a male tournament gets. And the important thing for people to understand on that is a lot of times on LPGA golf previously, they only had a few TV towers. Maybe it was the last few holes. They might have had a couple roaming guys to go out and catch stories on the golf course. Whereas in the male game, they probably had TV towers on 12 to 14 holes and a couple guys roaming. So all 18 holes could get coverage. Chevron, as part of their deal, said, we're doing this, but they will get live major network coverage and they will get equivalent TV coverage to men.
My goodness.
This is the first time that's ever going to happen.
Wow.
It's amazing. It's awesome. And they, you know, they deserve a tremendous amount of credit for stepping in and yeah, they drove the money conversation, right? They said purses need to go up and we're going to take that step. And they kind of, you know, worked in concert with KPMG, who stepped up a few years ago and said $4.5 million, not nearly equivalent to what the men are playing for, but it was more than any other tournament, almost by double at the time.
Yeah, exactly.
So for Chevron to step in, and then when Chevron stepped in and said the major network coverage, things really started to roll and change. And think about how much things changed from the start of the season this year to the mid or getting to the end point of this season, and how much more female golf you see live, how much more you even have seen some major network coverage that was originally probably not scheduled. And that is only going to increase. And as you increase the exposure, I think people are really going to realize just how good these women are, because they are phenomenal talents. I mean, Lexi Thompson hitting the ball 300 yards.
Yeah.
The ones who have a shorter game, the accuracy. And I mean, candidly, you know, you look at narrow fairways, you look at wide fairways, these girls they do not hit it out of the fairway very often. No. It's amazing.
It's a massive miss when they miss the fairway, actually, because they're always there. I mean, they're amazing. Just right down the middle. And I mean, you know, like we were spoiled with some pretty good golf from PGA Tour and from the USGA over the last couple of weeks. But that's not to say what's been going on the LPGA has been dynamite. Like yesterday's leaderboard on Sunday was amazing. You have Brooke Henderson up there. You have, you know, Nelly Korda, Lexi Thompson, Jennifer Kupcho. You know, and it was a lot of that the week before at the ShopRite Classic as well. You know, where it's amazing golf.
Just because I don't want to forget the point, because you bring up something that's extremely important. It's no different now than it was 10 or 20 years ago. I've had the good fortune the last few years. Our friends at Insperity do a tournament down the road, and they do a combined corporate event here called the Greats of Golf, and they bring in legends of the game. Well, for the last several, they've brought in some of the female legends as well.
Oh,
and
nice.
And we've had Annika Sorenstam, who goes by Annika. Don't make that mistake. Don't call her Miss Sorenstam. Annika. Woo!
It sounds like lesson learned.
Yes, ma'am, Annika. But Julie Inkster, Laura Davies, Pat Bradley, Nancy Lopez.
Oh, wow.
And I'm sitting there. I mean, I watched Annika Sorenstam hit a drive, a couple approaches, and not one of her approaches was farther out than 5 feet from the hole. I was like, unbelievable. And I was watching her swing, and I'm like, it looks exactly like it did 20 years ago. I mean, I was like, watch, and now, you know, she's getting back out on the competitive circuit, which is awesome. Because I was watching, you know, she's the only female to ever shoot a 59. and she
Yes.
looks like she could still do it. Just awesome. But the other thing is, I'm watching Julie Inkster hit a drive, and I mean, it's like her and Laura Davies are like a female version of Justin Thomas. I mean, they're coming out of their shoes. And, I watched Laura Davis playing with four other people, not one, a water hole. And all of her amateur partners are in the water. So I'm kind of thinking she's going to back off a little and just try to put something up in the fairway. She pounded it like 270 yards.
Oh, wow.
Came out of her shoes. And I'm like, unbelievable. And then the other thing is, Matt Fitzpatrick, won at Brookline,
Yes.
won the amateur, and then wins the U.S. Open on the same course. Well, they said the only other person to do that is Jack Nicklaus. So pretty good company, right? Well, if you look at the LPGA side, the only other person to do that, Julie Inkster.
Yes. Yeah, they totally.
And I'll tell you what, you talk about somebody else that I think should still be out on tour. I mean, when she hits a ball, I'm like, does she have a little microphone built into that? Because it is unbelievable how she goes after a ball.
She still hits the ball like that, eh? She still hits the ball like that.
Unbelievable. I mean, and Nancy Lopez. I mean, just class. I only saw her. I saw her play 2 par 3s actually, and I don't know. Wasn't outside of the shadow of the stick for sure on either one of them. And I'm just like going, I mean, these ladies 20 years ago were phenomenal, but they didn't get the coverage.
No.
So thankfully the girls now are going to get the coverage. And I love listening to LPGA golfers now. They kind of their, I guess it's a public calling, but I think it might be a private calling too, but they're like, act like a founder. They really feel like this is their moment in golf.
Yes.
And the whole golfing world should applaud that. They really should. So I'm proud to be a part of it.
And you know what? Like, I mean, Molly Marcoux Saman. I mean, she's done an amazing job in her first year as LPGA commissioner. But you know what? The job that Michael Wan did leading up to all this. I mean, he did a fantastic job, really getting the LPGA. I don't want to say on the map because that would take away from the likes of Annika and Dame Davies and and down the list. But you know what he accomplished in his tenure as LPGA commissioner, I mean, it could never be forgotten.
I think you're right. And, I mean, you look at Julie Inkster and Annika, Nancy Lopez, Pat Bradley, Laura Davies. Gosh, I mean, the list goes on, some of the, I don't know, I don't want to hurt anybody's feeling and say elder statesman because that's not fair. But I mean, Christy Kerr and some of the ladies that are still playing well competitively, but were kind of part of things 20 years ago. It's much like, the early days with Jack and Arnie and Gary Player working with the PGA and the USGA to develop the men's game into what it is today. And these women at the forefront, the Annikas, the Julie Inksters, that brought a tremendous amount of popularity into the game because of what they were doing in the game of golf, even with their limited exposure, are kind of the forerunners to what's going on now. And your point about Mike Wan and what he did with the LPGA, I mean, a phenomenal personality, a gentleman through and through. I've had very limited dealings with him previously. The LPGA was actually looking for a home location change while Mike Wan was still involved. And then obviously things worked back out again in Florida. So that's where they remained. But Woodlands was a contender for that. And Carlton Woods was involved in that process and also some other locations in Texas. But the other thing that the LPGA now has is they have a friend in Mike Wan who's now moved over to the USGA. And, if you watched his speech on 18 at Pine Needles, he does not forget the good time he had at the LPGA. And he really started what I think were some really nice things that I had not witnessed before that continued. You just see there's a new wind blowing at the USGA because of him. Because, for the first time, at least that I remember, and I could be wrong, but I remember watching that awards presentation on 18, and the first thing he does, I think the maintenance crew was wearing mint-colored shirts, and the first thing he did after he said, thanks everybody for attending and greeting everybody, this was he said, the first thing I need to do is recognize these guys in the mint green shirts for the work they did for the last, really for the last month, getting the course ready for championship conditions and really recognizing the hard work that they put in. I was like, boy, I don't ever remember that being done in the past, and then obviously taking the step forward and getting to the volunteers and a very meaningful acknowledgement of the volunteers before he got to the task at hand of recognizing the champions. But I thought that was very nice. And I think Mike Wan's going to be great for the USGA. And I think his tie to the LPGA is going to make this relationship even stronger over the next several years, which is great to see.
Well, again, I mean, the purse went up for the U.S. Women's Open this year as well. I mean, and you can't help but feel that's his presence. You can't help or shake that feeling, and not that you want to shake it because you want to you want to ride that year for a long time. And again, that's not to take away from the current commissioner. It's just we have to acknowledge what he's done. And anytime I've seen one of the ladies from the LPGA speak about him, Brittany Lincecum is one that really comes to mind. The things that she said, like these women, these ladies, they would go to ends of the earth for him. Which I think says a lot about the man himself.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the nice thing about him is in my very limited dealings and seeing him is he's very thoughtful, but you always know what he's thinking also. He's had to get on TV on a couple pretty tough issues as of late, right? With the LIV and dealing with that and allowing those players to participate in the US Open. But he doesn't just tell you the outcome. He walks you through the process and why. So anyway, I'm a huge fan of his, and I will tell you, my now limited dealings with the LPGA and Molly and some of the others. I actually guess I can use names, but the CFO of the LPGA, Kathy Milthorpe, I probably know her better than most. See Ricky from competitions, but they are all just they're nice, classy people. They're the kind of people that you want to deal with, and says a lot about the organization, and it says a lot about an organization that has a leader like Mike Wan that is very contemplative in what the future needs, and I think they did a great job in naming their new commissioner because like I said, I have very limited dealings with Molly. My club board and president have had more conversations with her actually than I, and they are extremely complimentary about their conversations. And she tells you the truth, whatever it is. It might be tough to hear, but she'd rather tell you what you need to hear than what you want to hear. So I expect great things from the LPGA organization. I expect great things from the USGA. Not that the USGA was poorly run before. Just a huge fan of Mike Wan, and I just think a wind has blown in there. And he obviously has a different style, and I think it's going to be good for the USGA. And I think it's going to marry those two organizations much more closely together, being the USGA and the LPGA, which probably will bring the LPGA and PGA Tour closer together too. Not that there's any problems there. That's been a very good relationship too, from the perspective that I have gotten over the last 6 or so months.
Well, I mean, and to that end, I mean, I would love to see a mixed event, not necessarily one of those silly season, Zurich Classic style events, but just like what we just saw over on the DP World Tour.
Right. Henrik Stenson and Annika got together and put together that event, and what a show that was.
It was.
Right. I mean, 21 under wins. A female ends up winning the event.
Yes.
In very competitive style. And I think she shot what, 6 or 7 under par the last day to win.
She won going away.
I mean, and gosh, I mean, they're true. You know, a final round highlight reel. I mean, I don't know. You know, I forget some of the approach shots she was hitting in, but it wasn't like they were sand wedges. I mean, there were 9s, 8s, 7s to inside 3 feet. I mean, you saw somebody that was truly in control of their game and absolutely executing the shot that was in her mind. And anytime you get to witness that, it's very exciting. And that was an awesome tournament. Henrik Stenson ended up doing quite well in that event too. And you think about all his responsibilities with the Ryder Cup, and he's been playing some awfully competitive golf as of late.
And quietly too. He's quietly gone about his business where you don't even really know he's out there.
You're absolutely right.
You know, and I mean the performance. You know, and unfortunately I forgot her name. Lynn. I can't remember what her name was. I can't believe this. I'm drawing blanks today. But I mean, that was as surgical as it gets. The display that she put on. I mean, there's no other word for it. I mean, yeah, okay, dominant. That's a good word too. But it was surgical. You know, and you know the one like before we totally leave the U.S. Open and Mike won. I just want to say that you know yesterday for him to come on and address the issues with the television coverage. I mean, again, that speaks a lot to who he is as a man and I think his legacy moving forward. You know, it's just you know, you'd go to battle for him. You know, he's the kind of guy where if he was an officer or something in the military, you'd fight for him.
Yeah, well, I think I've never, you know, he never walks away from a conversation that needs to happen. And I don't know, you know, I mean, as a fan of golf, you know, you can kind of go either way. Does that need to be addressed? Does that not need to be addressed? But the fact that there was questions in some people's mind, you know, he's very intuitive from that perspective going, hey, if some of our fan base is questioning things right now, then we need to at least address it. And out he comes and he does that.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, look, you know, every telecast has advertisers, right? And
they have to.
These TV contracts that, you know, NBC, CBS that they sign are many millions of dollars. I don't know. They could even be hundreds of millions of dollars. But it's a lot of money, and they buy those rights because they feel like they can sell some sponsorships and some advertising, and that advertising has to be done because the people paying for the advertising want to see their name or slogan or whatever. And I thought they did a great job, you know, doing the side-by-side coverage.
Yeah, the playing through, I think it was.
Playing through, yeah. And you know, and I think, yeah, I mean, there was a scoreboard miscue on one thing. And, you know, at the end of the day, I think everybody was trying really hard to represent a game that's very complicated to televise. I mean, there's no breaks in golf, right?
Well,
I mean, and, you know, once you tee off it, they were teeing off at whatever time, 8 a.m. Eastern, until the time the last person's off the course. It doesn't stop. There's no, you know, there's no inning change.
Yeah, there's no TV timeout.
There's no first down. There's no break. So to be able to capture stories on a moving target for 6 or 8 straight hours, I think they did a great job. And golf is a challenging game to cover.
You know what? I mean, look at the average acreage of a golf course. You know, you have to have, you know, camera. You got to run the cables. I mean, if people haven't been to an actual venue while there's a tournament going on to see all this stuff going on, they should, because you know what? Maybe then they'll finally get an understanding of what it really takes to air one of these tournaments. You know, it's more than a guy walking around or a girl walking around with with a cell phone and taking video. You know, it's so much more than that. I mean, you know, which is sort of stating the obvious.
I heard a number once of, you know, the miles of cables that are run to cover a event, and it might be 1,000 miles of cable to cover an event, and you know, the amount of semi trailers that they bring in with highly technical equipment. I mean, I think I heard at the U.S. Open there was 75 semi trailers pulled in to provide just TV network coverage. So that's, you know, the radio, the TV, podcasts, streaming. I mean, 75 semis and all the support people and all the cabling. And I mean, it's a big task. And boy, you know, I mean, they do a great job week in and week out. You know, I think I heard a number to televise a Corn Ferry Tour event costs about $1 million in setup for a television coverage, and that's only for like 3 or 4 hours of coverage.
Yeah, they don't really
go to something like a U.S. Open that has what I mean. God, it had 12 hours of coverage a day for 4 straight days. So you can only imagine the expense.
Oh, it's astronomical. You can't even imagine what that would be.
Right.
You know, so I mean, now of course you're the general manager at Carlton Woods. So not talking about Carlton Woods or the club at Carlton Woods, you know, I'd be totally remiss if we didn't discuss your venue there, your golf property. So you're the general manager there. So what can you tell us about the club at Carlton Woods?
I've been in the private club industry for about almost 33 years now. And I can tell you, you know, the first time I drove in, I found myself going, wow. And I haven't lost that feeling now in 7 years driving in. And I used to work in the corporate side of golf for some of the management ownership companies. And I've probably worked with no less than directly 100 clubs in my career. And been on the member equity side now this is my second member equity club. I spent time at Country Club of Landfall in Wilmington, North Carolina, which was a great spot. But this is a place that you knew it was destined for greatness. And through the years working with USGA, PGA, LPGA, you know, this club hosted the 2014 USGA Junior Am, where Will Zalatoris won actually. And so this club had kind of a pyramid set up of its aspiration towards championship golf. We did the 2007 men's and women's state championships. We had 2 courses, did them on either course, one on the Fazio, one on the Nicholas. We've hosted the Southern Am and other state championships leading up to the Junior Amateur Championship. And at that time, the USGA, I guess, hosted about what they considered 14 major championships in a year. And the club rated as the #1 venue of any championship that year. And that looks at the whole picture. That looks at, you know, clubhouse operations, course operations, but really community and how the staff leans into making sure it's successful. So we're very proud of that. And once we kind of reached the top of that pyramid, we reset to what's next. And, you know, we started thinking US Amateur would be a nice event for the club to do. And then obviously we didn't really want to get into I guess for lack of a better term, a regular tour event. We didn't want to do a regular stop on the PGA or the LPGA or the PGA Tour Champion. We only wanted to do a major. And the club has a heart for amateur golf. You know, we've done the Carlton Woods Invitational now for 15 years, which is one of the best amateur championships, invitationals on the World Amateur Golf ranking tour each year.
Wow.
We've hosted an AJGA event for 15 years. We do a lot of collegiate things with the NCAA. We hosted the 2021 Women's Big 12 Championship, and we're also scheduled to do the 2024, which interestingly will be the week in advance of the Chevron Championship.
Oh, that's
So we
wild.
think that's going to be super cool for them to be able to come play on a major venue with the sky boxes set up, and I mean they'll be playing the exact course and experience that the LPGA ladies will have. But the other thing, how great is that going to be for the parents and fans that are watching to be able to sit in those sky boxes and watch the championship occur? But I think the great thing about Carlton Woods is we're a 36-hole facility. We have a Jack Nicklaus signature course. We have a Fazio championship course. They're both amazing. As far as a golf pedigree in the Houston area, the region, we are that place. If you're a good golfer, or you aspire to be a good golfer, or play at an important place, this is that place. And we're very proud of it. The members are very proud of it. This club is recognized as a Platinum Club of America. You have some properties in Ontario that also are in the Platinum Clubs of the World designation. But Platinum Clubs is it's not a destination, it's a pursuit. You stay a Platinum Club because every day you challenge yourself to be the best that you can be. We also happen to be a Distinguished Club of America, and we were recently awarded the elite status a couple years ago. Wow. So this is a place that is always in pursuit of getting better and always in pursuit of excellence. And I think the partnership between Visit the Woodlands, the Township, the LPGA, IMG, Chevron for sure, we are going to put on a show that people are going to remember. And just to speak a little bit about the course specifically, this is going to be contested on the Jack Nicklaus signature course. Anybody who knows Jack Nicklaus as a designer knows that he's kind of a second shot designer. Ironically, this course, 5 holes are extremely demanding driving holes. All 18 are extremely demanding approach shots.
Oh.
The nice thing about this is if somebody can play their way into contention on the front 9 on the last day, you could shoot a 30 on the front 9. But if you're in pursuit of 30 and you are not playing very precisely, you can easily get a 50.
Oh, it's one of those courses.
It's water, challenging approaches. But the nice thing is, we've seen it in competitive golf out here. We've seen a 30 on the front 9. We've also seen a 30 on the back 9. But again, the greens are every shot on this course calls for a particular shape. Right to left, left to right, straight ball. Every approach, same way. But the greens, if for instance, if there's a pin on the front left and you miss it to the right, you might be in the water. You might be in a bunker. If it's a back left pin, a back right pin, and you miss it to the left, you're in a bunker or water or in a tough rollout area. So you don't have to hit the shot that's called for, but you have to execute the shot that you're trying to hit. And if you do that at a very high level, I think this is going to end up being probably set itself up for probably one of the best shootout last 9 holes of any event. We have a par 5 finishing hole on the 18th hole. If you're within 2 going into the last hole, you have a chance. And that's going to be an extremely exciting finish because you can go for it in 2. But if you go for it in 2 and don't execute exactly what you're trying to accomplish, you're laying 4. And now a 5 or a 6 is in play very easily. So right at the end, you can shoot your way out of it. And we happen to have a member here that was the highest ranking amateur senior player in the country, I guess 2 years ago now. And he will tell you that this course made him better. Playing our courses makes him better. And it really makes you play one shot at a time and within yourself. Because the more you play this course, the more it gets in your head. Because all of a sudden you're playing the 9th hole, and if you start worrying about, oh my God, I got to hit that drive on 10 instead of executing the shot on 9, that's how the game gets away from you.
It
Just to
swallows
give
you
you
up.
kind of a forecast, I mean, you got to hit the drive on 10. The approach is okay. 11 is probably the most forgiving hole on the backside. You have a challenging par 3 and 12. 13, you can get an eagle, but if you go for an eagle and mess up, you're probably heading for a double. 14 has the probably most difficult approach shot on the course. 15 is just a challenging hole, water along the side, angular green over water. An error there can make or miss. It'll be the first. 15 will be the first defining moment of the championship. 16 is the hardest green to putt on the entire course. If you're on the wrong side of the hole, on a short side or a long side, or right or left of the pin, if you're on the wrong plateau, it's absolutely the most treacherous putt you're going to face. Very easy to three putt if you don't hit the proper approach. 17 is a very challenging par 3. There's a safe bailout shot to the front right, but you go for a pin in the back left, water, sand, native area, just all the bad words in golf. Then you get to 18 and it's a par 5, and the whole course depends on setup. It's as I've told the LPGA, as like, you want your champion to shoot +2, you can set that up here. If you want your champion to shoot -10, you can set that up here. You do whatever you want to do. All that we care about is you set it up so it doesn't favor one particular style. I don't want it to favor the bomber, and I don't want it to favor the tactician or the precision player. I want it to identify the best golf. And that's why Carlton Woods really was awarded this championship, because major championship venues are selected. Most tour events or tournaments go to an area to promote an area or promote a company. The tournament is around a company or an area. Majors are supposed to determine the best player, and I think to accomplish that, they picked one of the few venues in the area that can actually do that. Is we can identify who is in control of their game to the highest level that week, and I think that's going to be extremely exciting.
You have me all pumped up for it. We're how many months away from the Chevron being played? I mean, you have me just riled up here.
It's going to be an awesome championship. I think it'll be one for the books. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be a lot like what you saw at Brookline. Is going into that back 9. In our last invitational, we had a person shoot 5 under on the back 9. That score is out there for anybody that is in control of their game going into the back 9. Now, this was on a day that the next nearest competitor shot even par on that same back 9. That's how well he was playing. But he actually not only played his way back into contention, but he ended up winning the event by 1 stroke because of that 5 under score on the back 9.
Unreal.
So going into this event, nobody is out of it going into the back 9, and nobody is out of it within 2 strokes going into 18. And I think that's going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome theater. It's going to be awesome television, and I can't wait to see it.
Shortly after, and I know we're getting short on time here. Of course, like I mentioned, you're a busy guy, and I appreciate all of this. When I found out about the Chevron Championship and Carlton Woods being selected as the venue, the first thing I did was I went to the website and I started looking at different pictures and whatnot of the golf course just to get a feel. Now, I think it was on the Nicklaus signature course. There's one particular hole there, and just looking at it, for whatever reason, it gave me an Augusta feel. And I think it might be number 5. Mm-hmm. Is it maybe number 5 that sort of has a?
You will get. It's an astute observation, because actually the first time I got to drive the Nicklaus course when I came to the club, I had the same feeling. I would tell you that 3, 4, and 5 on the Nicklaus course is kind of our version of Amen Corner.
Oh.
And when Jack Nicklaus designs a course, he gives a nod to kind of some of his favorite courses that he's played. He tries to give them an Augusta feel, a St. Andrews feel, and he'll kind of tell you in his thought processes as he's designing, this shot should play kind of like the shot at fill in the blank. Tell you somewhere else that you really get that sense is 10 and 11. You get a very august, the pine trees and the somewhat transparent view through a natural area to a bordering hole. And then also on 13 and 14, another area where you get this real Augusta air. Now this course has a natural component to it. It has a very Parkland style feel to it. And amongst those two things, it's just a very formal, traditional. It's all right in front of you. There's no I want to say mystery to what you have to accomplish.
Right.
It's all right in front of you. You just have to execute. And if you on every single shot, you could hit a left to right, a right to left, straight ball, a fade, a draw. You can hit any shot you want on any hole on this golf course, on any shot, drive, approach, anywhere. You just better do it to a high level.
Amazing.
It's an awesome golf course. I'm sure I'm biased, but I've been around a lot of the Jack Nicklaus signature courses, and I would tell you, I think it's just one of its best. And it's as far as if you're looking for just a traditional feel where you can kind of go get lost on a golf course and almost feel the history of the game get into you. This is a course where you'll just be standing out and about to hit an approach shot. You'll just find yourself going, you just feel it all of a sudden. And that's what this course does to you.
You know what? That's my kind of golf course because I love being transcended somewhere. You know what? I mean, happens here at home too. You know, like I can put on a certain piece of clothing and it's like, okay, well, I feel like I'm coastal. You know, like right. You know, I mean, and just looking at the pictures in behind you, I think what really amazes me is the geography and topography of the golf course itself. I mean, you know, maybe it's you know, ignorance on my part, not truly knowing the geography of the Houston area, but I mean, I look at that and that's not what I would think. I mean,
it's interesting. We actually do have some terrain that we deal with here, and you know, like most coastal-ish communities, tends to flatten out the closer to the water you get. So we're a very kind of flat region, but the way it rolls around here, we probably from the low point to the high point, we probably have about 60 feet of very slow rolling elevation, to the point where you actually have a spot on the course where you actually have a pretty nice vista view of ponds and the holes in front of you. You also have some lows, but you know, it's one of those courses that can get unnerving because there's some shots where the tee's elevated looking down on a green. There's other shots where the green's just elevated enough that you can't see the bottom of the flagstick, which is just very unnerving for golfers when they can't see the bottom of the flagstick. And it just for the Houston area, it's just a beautiful piece of property that rolls through. And that's, you know, a Nicklaus signature property. This was obviously built originally by the Woodlands Development, then owned by Howard Hughes before the members purchased the club in 2015.
Did you say Howard Hughes? As in,
Howard Hughes, yeah.
As in
Howard Hughes Development Corporation. Yeah.
Really?
Yep.
Wow. That's why.
There's still a commercial land developer and commercial development company, and that's very, very big in this area.
Wow.
Probably
wild.
Texas and probably even outside of Texas, but yeah. So they purchased the club and the assets of the Woodlands from Woodlands Development Company. And then the members bought the club from Howard Hughes, who still has a large presence in this area commercially, but the members bought the club in 2015. And, you know, the contract that is struck when you're doing the difference between a Jack Nicklaus signature course and a Nicklaus design course is in a signature course, the course is designed first. So if it's going to be in a residential area, you have to figure out the routing of the streets and the houses after the layout of the course.
Right.
The other thing is there are setback requirements that are much more grandiose than if it was a Nicklaus design course or even another designer. In some cases, I think from lot to lot, it has to be at least 600 feet, which that may not sound that big, but that's a long way. The nice thing here is it was a great partnership with Mr. Nicklaus because there is, I'm trying to think, there is no hole on our course that has houses on more than one side. So that's how you get that natural and parkland feel, because
Right.
it's very unencumbered by real estate. It's kind of it's in its own little bubble area, and it just wraps within itself, and you kind of have homes on the exterior of the bubble. So it's very unique, very unique.
Now, how many members do you have at the club at Carlton Woods?
We have a total of about 760 memberships. Of that, we stay around 650 golfing memberships.
Perfect. And one last question before I let you go, because again, you're a busy man. If anyone wants to look up information on the club at Carlton Woods, do you have social media channels or a website that they can go and look at?
Yeah, you can look up, if you just Google search the club at Carlton Woods, will pop up. And there's some nice information available to the public on our webpage. We're also on Facebook and Twitter, and you'll see things pop up to the club. As you might assume, as a member of country club at a high affluent level, you'll see just a lot of special events going on at the club, whether that be family events like winter carnivals and spooktaculars and holiday dinner functions and things like that, but also golf. We reserve ourselves to a very few member of events each year, and we have some good long-standing partnerships. Although the name sometimes brings some mixed feelings right now. Phil Mickelson was on the Golf Channel earlier this year. He was out at the club with a KPMG event where he got a hole-in-one on one of our par threes. And that kind of sucked all the oxygen out of the golfing world. This was before all the recent chatter, thankfully.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and that's a whole Pandora's box that we will not open here today.
Yeah, I like to stay out of the politics of golf and stay on the attributes of it.
You and I both.
Because it's a great game, right? I mean, it's everything if you play the game the way it's intended and you treat it with respect the way it's intended. I mean, there's just not a lot of places where you can call penalties on yourself, and it's up to you to post an honest score at the end of the day and shake hands in the honor of allowing the person out to go first, and admiring somebody that's in control of their game while you try to do battle with your own. And it's a great game. It's unlike anything, and it's unlike any other game I know.
You know what? And I think that's going to be a pretty great way to end. I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing the Chevron Championship and a whole bunch of new, hopefully a new tradition happen like we always had all those years with Poppy's Pond over at Mission Hills. So Steve Salzman, I just want to thank you so much for joining me today on TeeBox Chatter. This was a fun conversation, and I can't thank you enough. So thank you very much.
Yeah, it's been my great pleasure. It's nice spending a little bit of time with you.
Yeah, thank you. So everyone, please check out the club at Carlton Woods and the Chevron Championship, which is the first major of the year. And of course, it's put on by the LPGA. So everyone, stay safe out there, take care, and we'll see you on the next tee. And that's it.